Happy holidays, everyone. I put on something special for you today. This is the third class in our holiday cooking class series of three classes. So I want to give a huge shout out to one of our participants in Georgia. She's been in every single class. Yay! And Steve is in for class two. And then I'm super excited today because my parents finally made it.
Finally.
Thanks to technology, we have participants in Canada, New York, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and California. So, as I mentioned, this is being recorded so the people who are not in class, believe it or not, some people are at a holiday party today since we're across all different time zones, and some people are at work. When we do the different time zones, we get all different kinds of reasons why people can't join in class. But I'm super excited because we have the replay. So, um, the first class that we did in our series was the pear and walnut salad with Stilton blue cheese and a cranberry vinaigrette. It was really delicious. Then last week we did a creamy fennel soup that did not have any dairy in it. You can always add a dollop of sour cream or creme fraiche. We talked about adding a little bit of goat cheese perhaps, but the creamy texture in that recipe came from a Yukon Gold potato. And you really don't need that much potato in it for it to be give it that really nice creamy texture. And the fennel was the featured ingredient and it was really delicious. So if you haven't had a chance to make that recipe yet, I really encourage you to do so. That's a recipe. Oh, Steve has it right there. If you have questions throughout class today, please ask. Don't hesitate to ask. It makes it fun for everyone. If you are thinking of a question, someone else is too. So don't be shy. We're going to get started on our chicken Marbella. So today's class is going to be, oh, Steve has fennel. I'm so proud of you. Wait, you have to make your crown. Steve and I used to do a radio program today. We were on the air for 5 years on KABC TV or KABC Radio in Los Angeles, and then we also did a 6-episode series on PBS Television Network. So Steve always adds a lot of fun and flair to any production that
I used
we're
to get
doing.
reprimanded a lot.
You used to. No. You bring joy to the production.
Denise would kick me under the table.
I would absolutely kick him under the table. Say, stop it. I can't kick you from here. I'll just have to say, basta. So today's cooking class is going to be filled with a lot of twists and changes because when I went to the supermarket, I don't know if it's because it's the holiday season or we're still in a pandemic or it's probably a combination of both, but they didn't have chicken thighs. And instead of running around town trying to find chicken thighs, I thought we'll just improvise with what we have because that's what you're going to need to do when you go to the store and if you can't find an ingredient. So today's class is going to have instead of chicken thighs, we are going to do bone-in pork chops. Now, you could do boneless pork chops, but the reason why I chose bone-in pork chops is because of how thick they are. So you can probably see, like those really,
Beautiful.
yeah, they are gorgeous bone-in pork chops. very thick. And because of the cooking time, we're baking them for about 50 minutes to an hour. I didn't want the really thin ones because the other ingredients, you want the flavors to really marinate together, so that I chose a thicker pork chop. I also thought about getting a pork tenderloin and then slicing it into really thick slices and doing it that way, more like really thick medallions. You could do that as well, but these just looked so good.
Oh,
Hi,
nice.
Brandy. Nice to see you. So, Brandy, my parents are here from Florida. Patty's here again from Georgia.
Hi. Hi
Steve,
there.
Steve is joining us. He lives in Lake Arrowhead, Brandy,
Hi,
and
Steve.
Hi.
you'll meet Steve one day. So, Brandy, I was just sharing that the store shelves were empty. There were hardly even chicken breasts, and I really didn't want to do chicken breasts because they don't have enough fat in them for this recipe.
Hmm.
You want a little bit of fat. So I chose a really thick bone-in pork chop.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so I rinsed off the pork chops, and I just wanted to show you this. Like during COVID, and it was at the beginning, it was really hard to find regular paper towels. So we went online. The only paper towels we could find were those little, really thin paper towels that you get in like, public restrooms kind of thing. So we just bought a buku bunch of these, and actually, I love them
Did you
because
really buy them or steal them from the gas station?
no, we bought them. We bought them.
I've never seen those in a grocery store. I'm sorry.
No, they were not in a grocery store. We ordered them online because
Oh, sorry.
at the beginning
Okay.
of COVID, we weren't even in the house. So no, we bought these online. But we couldn't even find paper towels online. But now I've fallen in love with these because they're a fraction of the price and they're perfect. So earlier I had rinsed off the pork chops and then I just pat them dry with these inexpensive little towels versus using the expensive paper towels. So I wanted to share that with you because that is a fun cost saving tip, and and they come like, I forget how many are in a pack, but a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So if you're doing these bone-in pork chops and you're making the recipe, I would use 4 of these. But since it's just me and Billy here, and I already have done half the recipe in the oven for you, I'm only going to use 2 for today's demonstration. And today's demonstration is super easy. It's more about just putting ingredients together. I am going to show you my garlic tips. I'm going to save that for after I put the other ingredients in. But you're going to use a head of garlic. And then, as I just mentioned, I'll show you some tips on what to do with the head of garlic other than this recipe in a little bit. If you have questions, please ask as we go along. So I'm going to add in some dried oregano. This is one of these recipes that I love. You really can't mess it up. Those are the best kind. So dried oregano, just buy it, at the grocery store there. So I'm just going to toss that in. I'll show you the bowl as I put more ingredients in. So here is our dried oregano. Then I'm just going to add in a little bit of salt and pepper. Don't want you to worry. This is the hand that I did not touch the pork chop with. Put it, I do a healthy pinch of pepper. You don't want to overdo it, but a healthy pinch was probably about half a teaspoon. And then a healthy pinch of sea salt. I always use sea salt. So here we go. Then I'm going to put in red wine vinegar. You don't have to spend a ton of money or buy some fancy red wine vinegar. This is just the general store brand. The key components of this recipe are a balance of sweet and acid and sour, and kind of every recipe, whether it's a dessert or an entree or a side dish, is going to have some kind of balance of sweet and savory with a little bitter and then those layers of flavor.
I'm not
And
bitter. I'm not
what?
bitter about anything.
You're not bitter?
I'm not bitter about anything except Ava Mendez.
Okay, so I put our red wine vinegar in. Heidi and I have some inside scoop on bittersweet, but
So can I
we
ask a
can,
quick question, Susan?
yeah.
Okay, so I've printed out the recipe. So the recipe that you're doing, you're kind of doing it in order that's listed on the recipe, correct? So you're kind of, we should use the
Yeah.
order that's printed out. Okay.
Yes. Any good recipe writer um, tries to writes the recipe as the ingredients should go. So the ingredients should be listed in the order that you're putting them in. The only exception I'm doing is here. I talked about the garlic, but I didn't put the garlic in yet. So yes, I did the
That's more
garlic.
important probably in baking than anything else, but it's still, I just want to make sure that since I'm doing your cooking class, I want to learn everything I can. I want to soak up as much knowledge from the bikini chef as I can.
You're so sweet, Steve. And here's the one of the best tips I can give you in cooking whatsoever is to read the recipe all the way through before you start the recipe. And I would venture to say that probably 90% of the people out there don't read the recipe all the way through before they start it. Reason why that is like you mentioned baking. So in baking, let's say a lot of recipes, you'll have 10 eggs separated, right? So then they'll have a step on what to do with the egg whites and what to do with the egg yolks and sometimes they'll even have different layers of what to do with then. So if you don't read the recipe all the way through, there's a good chance you may throw an ingredient out or add it too early or do something that you're not supposed to, to do with it. And then you're like, whoops, now I have 10 egg whites. I was only supposed to use half of those now and save half later. So read the recipe all the way through. And having said that, so red wine vinegar, putting in some olive oil. And this is just a basic olive oil. In recipes like this that are going to be baked, you don't need to spend a ton of money on some super expensive olive oil. And so this is just regular, this one's Pompeian. I know there's Bertolli. And I'm just layering it all in, and then I'm going to toss it afterwards. Then we're going to put in capers.
Oh,
So we put some of the ingredients. Now we're going to put in the salt. And each of these ingredients layers in flavor. And I didn't use all of the juice like from the capers, so I have a jar here. I used I had a few other capers in another jar, so I would say this recipe calls for about half of this jar. And I would use about maybe a third of the liquid from it. And any papers that you have remaining in the jar, make sure that you reserve them in the liquid, that you store them in the refrigerator in the liquid. Otherwise, they'll dry out and they'll lose their texture and flavor. And I learned a ton of my cooking tips and techniques from my mom, and she's with us today. So, Mom, if you have any comment, feel free.
I'm just absorbing everything.
Yeah, I know you. I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, I would do it this way.
Nope, you're going right. Great.
So we have a layer of salt, and then now we're going to add plums. Now, in today's society, they are also known as dried plums. I think maybe they thought they would sell more if they call them dried plums as opposed to prunes, but they're prunes. And a lot of people, when they first see these, they're like, prunes, what? Dried plums are amazing. They have a ton of fiber. They're great for you. They're great for your skin. Um, they add terrific flavor. They have a lot of natural moisture. You find them where you find like the dried apricots and any other of the other dried fruits and things. Okay, so that's where you find those. They are a little bit challenging to find though. So okay, so now we have in our prunes, and we're gonna put in bay leaves. Now bay leaves are interesting. If you remind me, Steve, if you make a note after class, I'll show you my bay leaf wreath. We have a friend that ships us a wreath that stays in our kitchen year round, and it's completely made of bay leaves. It's kind of fun.
So you can pick a sprig off every once in a while and throw it in your dish. That's so smart. The gift that keeps on giving.
So here, like I bought these, of course. You can buy them in a jar. They're in the spice section. But if I run out or if I don't feel it, I'll just go over to our wreath and throw them in. So I'm just going to toss a couple of these in. Bay leaves are interesting. They do add a ton of flavor, but it's really hard to describe the flavor that they add. And you really shouldn't eat them like this, but it's kind of that, again, it's like the deep, earthy flavor, very, I don't know if I could find like it's bitter, but it's not bitter like in a fennelly, licorice kind of way. It's, I don't know, maybe some of you have a better word for bay leaf, but just toss a couple of those in. Now I think it's ready for our olives. Oh, I missed the olives. Okay. So the olives. Now, this was very interesting because I have a lot of different types of olives in my refrigerator. So I have Greek Kalamata olives. I have Italian Castelvetrano olives. I have two kinds of those. I have some with the pit in them, and I have some that have been pitted. And it's interesting because the ones that have been pitted, they actually don't have as much distinctive flavor as the ones that still have the pit. And the texture is much more mushy is the best word for it. It's a lot softer because when the pit is still in the olive, then it kind of holds the flesh together. So that's really an interesting tidbit that you wouldn't think of unless you have these different types of olives, in your refrigerator. And the reason
you're an olive snob.
Yes. Well, Billy loves these Italian olives and he loves them with the pits. But there for a while we couldn't get them anywhere. They weren't available. So we bought.
Is it a big olive, Susan? I'm not familiar with that type of olive. It is a big olive. Is it green or black olive?
It's green.
Where'd she go?
Get the olive. So these are the Italian ones.
Oh, okay.
Italian ones.
Oh,
that
wow. Okay,
but
got
they're
it.
very different than these. So Steve, you're gonna love these olives. They have your name on them.
Queen. That's great. That is me most of the time.
I knew you would love that.
My husband and I both teach dance class up here in Lake Arrowhead. I teach ballroom class and James teaches tap. So they call us the dancing queens of Lake Arrowhead.
I love it. Well, these are Spanish queen olives, and they're stuffed with, yes, there you go. They're stuffed with pimento. And
Lovely.
so the Italian olives are a bit sweeter, milder in flavor. The Greek Kalamata olives are actually too rich in flavor. They're almost too heavy in flavor, so more depth of flavor. And so the Queen Spanish olives are just right. A little bit of sweet and savory, that sweet and sour combination. pitted and then stuffed with pimento. So I'm just going to put these right in there. And now
So
I'm
you're
going to,
using the pimento as well. The pimento stays in the recipe. Okay.
it does. I'm not a huge fan of pimento, but when it's in a recipe like this, it adds some layer of
That
flavor.
looks gorgeous.
I know, isn't it beautiful?
Oh,
So this, I'm going to give you my garlic tips, but this with the garlic in it, you would just toss this a little bit, cover it with plastic wrap, and then put it in the refrigerator overnight. And then the next day, about an hour before you're going to bake it, you would take it out of the refrigerator so that it comes to room temperature. And then you're going to transfer it to a baking dish like this. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Okay, so just a Pyrex baking dish. But I don't want to jump ahead yet. But I did want you to see how beautiful that is, right?
that is gorgeous.
Okay, so now I'm going to share with you my garlic. A couple of tips on garlic. So the recipe, if you're doing the full recipe for 10 people, use a whole head of garlic. You're like, whoa, that's a lot of garlic. But it's marinating overnight, and you're not going to chop it up really fine, which is another reason why I love this recipe, because this recipe doesn't call for a ton of chopping and all. You just get everything measured out and toss it in, throw it in the refrigerator, bring it out an hour before you want to cook it, put it in the dish, throw it in the oven. That's it. So easy. Serve it with the salad that we did it the first week in class, followed by the soup that we did last week. You have a 3-course meal and do some easy dessert. People think you're just like went to
Fancy
cooking.
schmancy.
Ah, fancy.
Fancy schmancy.
Fancy smancy. So, a couple ways you can do garlic. The more cumbersome way is you take the side of your chef knife and one garlic clove. Yeah, and you press on it. And then you just peel off the skin.
I like to do that, but then my fingers always smell like garlic.
You know what you do is you take some lemon and rub your fingers with lemon
Okay. After or before?
after you do it.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know. You're the queen of the lemons, at the lemon zest and everything.
I am totally. Okay, so you don't need to dice it up really fine. You can just kind of roughly chop it like that. But you would do the whole head of garlic, okay? If you don't want to do that, I think Mom, you gave this to me. It's just a garlic peeler. It's a rubber garlic peeler. And
Yes.
It looks like
yeah,
Homer's bone.
that's a great little stocking stuffer. You just
Yeah.
put the garlic, whole clove of garlic in there, and you just roll it.
Oh,
It
wow.
works great.
It does, and look, it peeled
Yeah.
the garlic for me.
Yeah, it peels it for you.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. The only reason why I don't like this is because when I'm doing a whole head of garlic, I'll show you what
Yeah.
happens. All these little peels stick to the rubber and they get all over the place. But
I've never even heard of this thing.
you haven't? Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
That's beautiful. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
no, it does. It works great.
I love
Yeah.
that. I'm going to get one of those for
Yeah.
my stocking.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're great
Right.
stocking stuffers for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Can we just talk about Brandy's cheekbones for a minute?
what?
Can we just talk about Brandy's gorgeous cheekbones for a minute?
Oh my God.
She is supermodel. It's on.
No, thank you.
Brandy's on my real estate team. She's super photogenic.
Oh, she is? Okay, I didn't know
No,
that.
she's an amazing realtor. So, okay, Steve, focus on class. So,
I'm sorry.
so I always have a little bucket, even when I'm cooking at home, so I don't have to run back and forth to the trash can or whatever. I have a little bucket handy and put my trash and that. So you would do that with the whole head of garlic. So you can do it either pressing on it or the way I just showed you. And then I'm just going to roughly chop this. I'm doing half of the recipe, so a half a head of garlic. So I would say that's about 10 cloves. And again, just really roughly chop. You don't need it in small pieces. I'm going to toss that in there with my other ingredients. And that would marinate overnight. Now, one thing while I have this head of garlic here, I love roasted garlic. I don't eat it anymore because people called me out because I had horrible breath. I had garlic breath. They're like, you smell like garlic. So I stopped eating it as much. The garlic is super healthy for your immune system. And so you can roast.
Can you dispel a myth for us then about garlic?
What's that?
Well, I heard that if you eat cooked garlic, it doesn't affect your breath. But if you eat raw garlic, it does affect your breath.
Yeah,
No,
that's
that is
correct.
that's completely not true.
See,
And
that's why I come to you.
no, I'm living proof of that because one time I was on this romantic getaway and it was a weekend getaway and it was our first night. It was this beautiful hotel out, towards the desert in California. And we had just arrived. We had this beautiful suite, but we wanted to go get a glass of wine and an appetizer and enjoy this gorgeous view. So I said, oh my gosh, they have roasted garlic on the menu as an appetizer with some brie cheese. And I know that's not bikini, but it was amazing. So I proceeded to then eat the entire head of roasted garlic myself. And so this romantic getaway, I'm so happy. Well, my companion was so happy that we had a suite with a bay window because he slept in the bay window because I reeked of garlic.
Oh my God.
That is a true story.
That's terrible.
You cannot make that up. Okay, but if you want to roast garlic, you just slice off the top of it like that.
Lovely.
And then you would take like a baking dish, oil, and where's my olive oil? Right here. Then we just take some olive oil or grapeseed oil and put it over the top. And cover that with aluminum foil and roast it in the oven for about 45 minutes. And there you go. There's how you do roasted garlic. You may have already known that, but if you didn't, there you go. Okay. Those are my garlic tips. What questions do you have so far? None? Okay. So our last ingredient for now is the Italian parsley. So I left it banded. I washed it and dried it, but I did leave the band on because it's easier to manage. So we need about a quarter to a half a cup or so. And you just hold the leaves, the stems here, and you press your knife gently against the leaves and pull backwards, and it takes the leaves off of the stem for you. Okay? That's it. And you'll still get a few large stems, but you can just pick off the leaves, but it's a lot easier than taking each stem by stem and picking off all the leaves. Okay? Italian parsley is great for your bread. And so if you eat a lot of garlic, I recommend eating a lot of parsley. Herbs add flavor, they add color, but they also have antioxidants, phytochemicals that boost your immune system. There's fiber, they have good water content. So don't count out fresh herbs in your recipes as far as just a passing ingredient. They're actually vitally important and great for your health and add lots of layers of flavor to your dish. Okay, I'm only going to put about half that in because I'm doing half the recipe. Okay, and that's it as far as our recipe at this stage. Now what I would do,
Did I miss you putting the white wine and brown sugar in? Does
nope,
that come later?
not there yet.
Okay.
Almost. Okay, so here's our bowl with everything in it. I'm just going to take, you can use a wooden spoon. I'm just using these little spatulas. Gonna be a little bit challenging to toss these huge pork chops. I know, but don't worry about it because I'm gonna show you something next.
You've got weak
I do
wrists.
want, I do want to coat these a little bit while they're in the bowl, and then I'll show you. So now in here, you actually can kind of see it a little bit. I'm gonna use my finger, but this
Oh,
one
yeah.
has a lot of the acid on it, so the vinegar, the salt from the capers, and then the other ingredients, but it starts to cook food. And that's what
Oh.
really marinating is. Marinating is starting the cooking process and infusing flavors into your dish. So I'm going to wipe off some of this parsley. Okay. And then I'm going to take one pork chop. Now, if you were doing this is plenty for 4 people. If you were doing this for, say, 10 people, you definitely want to do the full recipe. Then I'm just going to pour this over. So this would have been marinating overnight, right? In the refrigerator, covered with plastic wrap. Okay? Simple and delicious. Now, Steve, this is what I'm going to take the brown sugar. And I'm just going to put the brown sugar over the top.
Oh, I
This will
see.
give it some depth of flavor.
That's in the directions. I see that now.
Yeah.
See, if I hadn't read through the recipe, I would have put the wine and sugar in the marinade.
Yeah, no, you put that in right before you're going to bake it.
Oh, can I tell you something funny about cooking real quick that I saw? I want to get your opinion on while you're doing that. Did you hear how Nigella Lawson calls the how she called microwave a funny, she pronounced it a funny way. Did you see that? She called it a microwave, a micro or microwave.
That's so funny.
It blew up on Twitter. It was hilarious.
Love that. Well, those who don't live in California, Southern California, or never been here, when I first moved to Manhattan Beach, we have a road out here called Sepulveda, and I called it Sepulveda.
That's exactly what she did.
I live, if you go to Sepulveda and turn left, and that's where I live. Okay, I'm going to rinse off my hand and grab my aluminum foil, so you guys chat for a second.
And do a wardrobe change, too.
No! Let my fiance go.
I think it was Nigella Lawson. It was, you could Google it, but last week it was all over social media. And everyone was like saying microwave or microwave or something. It was pretty funny.
That is really funny. Okay, so as they do on television, I have one in the oven already done.
Oh, Martha Stewart style.
Yes, Martha Stewart style. Okay, I'm going to cover this. Aluminum foil, put it in the oven for about an hour, 350 degrees. Okay, so.
Will it caramelize, Susan? Do you need to take the foil off at any point for a little more caramelization?
I don't take the foil off because this is more like that really moist dish and all the
Okay.
flavors kind of melding together. It's not really a caramelization dish. You'll see.
Got it. More
Yeah.
brothy.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Starving.
This all sounds really good.
I know, right? I definitely baked mine. I need to put it down over here. And wow, okay. So last week Steve was asking for me to describe the aroma.
Yes.
Very flavorful.
Aroma vision.
Yeah. So that'll go in the oven for about 45 to 50 minutes. Randy, will you Slack Kelly and tell her that I'm in my cooking class and I will call her back?
Yes, I will.
And tell Kamala Harris you'll call her back too. Speaking of Kamala Olives, she should come up with an olive line. Kamala Harris Olives.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. So I'm going to attempt to taste this for you.
Susan, you should actually do that every cooking class. Like have someone on the phone. It's like, no, tell Kamala I'll call her back later. Or tell, like have a thing. No, tell Nicole Kidman I'll call her back later. You should do that every class. I'm still trying to do your PR always.
I know. I need that. Okay, so put this over here. So that was in the oven probably, I don't know, maybe about 15 minutes longer than it needed to be. But hopefully you can see. It's too hot for me to pick it up. But I'm going to transfer some to a plate so you can see it. Okay, who plans to make some of these recipes for the holidays?
I do.
Sure, I will.
Okay. So you can just see you have a lot of the pan juices. So Steve, you can also maybe see a little bit why caramelizing wouldn't really work for this recipe.
Yeah. It's more, it's a different style.
Yeah, more of a savory. So I'll
I
show
love
you.
those big prunes, they just kind of,
Yeah, right?
oh,
So can you
wow.
see it?
Oh my God, that Spanish olive eyeball's looking right at me.
Maybe I'll.
Beautiful. Oh, that looks so good.
That looks good.
And what does it smell like again? The oregano and the garlic.
And you have all those flavors that I'm able, to smell right now. Let me see.
Is this one of those dishes where you could throw a little liquor on it and make it a flambe?
You could, actually. You could do that if you did. What would work really well, and no pun intended, but would be a nice brandy, a nice.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking because of all of those rich, savory flavors.
You could do a flambe for sure. Yeah. But be very careful.
Okay.
Especially in California, we've had enough fires. Okay, so I'm going to taste it for you. You can see, like, that is so easy to slice right through there. I'm going to dabble in a prune, a dried plum. It's probably going to be really hot.
Uh-oh. I'm terrified of cooking pork.
Really good. Your family friends will love it.
Tender.
You have a salad, you have a soup, you have an entree. There you go. You're set.
Brava. Brava.
Big party. Yeah, but see how tender that is?
Brandy, don't you live close by? Can't you run over there and grab one of those chocolates?
Yeah, I could.
The oven.
Oh.
Okay, this is torture.
Yeah, right.
Problem not being able to do a real cooking class, together in person. But you can make it and then message me a picture, post your picture on Facebook with it, or just text it to me, or however you like. So I got dressed up for you today in my chef coat. Randy still haven't told me which. Randy won a cookbook the first class, so she hasn't told me which one she wants yet. But this is
Okay.
my Cooking with Susan Southern Family Favorite. So that one has a lot of moms.
I want that one.
Yeah, that one's. You should see. You should see mine. You can hardly read. It's been used so much.
You know I love Southern tasting food, so I want that one.
And Brandy, tomorrow I've got to make some biscuits. Billy's all out, so I got to make him some biscuits. Then this is the post-COVID Bikini Chef diet book. We have that. This is a fun one too, though. This is one of my favorite books that I've ever written. You can see I use
Yeah, I
it
like
on
that book too.
Substitute Yourself Skinny. It's one of my favorite books that I wrote.
Well,
So,
Brandy's already done that. She doesn't need.
I know. Yay! Well, I'll stop recording. You don't have to hop off yet, but thank everyone for joining in class today. If you have any questions, you can always visit thebikinishef.com for more classes coming up. I have some class ideas I was thinking, and I would love your input. I was thinking about doing a knife skills class and like taking the different knife set, like an entire knife set, and showing the purpose of each knife and demonstrating how you use it. So I thought that would be a really fun class to do.
How to sharpen them. That's my problem.
Yes, that'll be part of it, how to sharpen the knife and what straightens it versus sharpening. And then walk you through the different purposes for each knife, because each knife definitely does do different, it serves a different purpose. So I think I'll do that class next. Starting on December 30th, I'm going to do a video podcast that'll be both cooking and real estate related, and we'll do some design discussions and things like that. That'll be a free video podcast, more informative, and we'll have guests on. And thank you all for participating. Like I said, you don't have to hop off yet if you don't want, but I am going to stop recording. And
Your kitchen.
Bye.
I know. Well, you and your hubby can come over anytime.
Thanks.
Okay.